Oh boy, StealthBat, it's been a while since we talked.
Yeah, it sure has.
Yeah, uh, man, that E3 conversation, man, over almost 2 hours, man. I mean, we're talking about this and that, and it was
Well,
total
we
train
got
wreck.
very pet. Go ahead.
A total train wreck. That was a total train, almost a total train wreck, if you ask me.
Well, we did get very passionate about it. I mean, we almost lost track of time.
Yeah, but there, I mean, there was something else I was going to talk about, but it was just like I was afraid it would be just a little too long, so I decided to save it for now. So
Hmm.
it's it's an article that I've been reading. I kindly lightly read because I'm not a big fan of Polygon. Of course, that's where this
Right.
article is coming from because I have had issues with them, and apparently they are claiming that Tom's Clancy's Division 2 is not making any political statements. Now, I'm not much a political guy. I want to keep my politics out of my entertainment unless they're insulting politicians or other things and politics and all that are crap that I do not like.
Hmm.
And this is not the first time that Polygon attacked Ubisoft for not making a political statement. I mean, they did the same thing with Far Cry 5, but it seems like they're kind of pushing this. And
Right.
I personally do not think pot, politics should not be in games. And I kind of want to get your 2 cents, and I'll give you mine, and see where we can lead this conversation because I feel like I'm on a train wreck from hell.
Hmm.
So, what do you think about politics and games?
Well, I think that if the politics is needed to tell the story, then I think it's perfectly justified. But if a game is created and the politics is forced rather than actually used properly to tell the story, then I think that it could be a bit twisted and actually hinder the ability for the game to be enjoyed.
I kind of agree with that, but but my problem with some politics is that it it shouldn't feel like it was forced into the game. I mean, like many games think they have to be political. I mean, granted, how many times have we played a game where a guy can marry a guy and nobody
Hmm.
seems to care? And
Right.
I mean, like it. I mean, personally, I have nothing against two gay video game characters getting married,
Hmm.
and if if they're trying to poke a little fun at gay marriage, I'm fine with that. But when it
Yes.
feels forced, like you say, I feel like it's just utterly ridiculous and doesn't need to be in my game at all.
Right. If they're doing it just to say, oh, well, we need to be inspiring, so let's throw it in there even though it's not necessary, then I would say it's a bit misplaced and they shouldn't do it.
Right.
However, if the story calls for it and they've got a good twist on the idea and it will actually, assist the storytelling, then I'd say go for it.
Yeah. Well, I only played like maybe like 3 or 4 hours of the original division, and
Hmm.
and I feel like it was more like a you know survival game because of like I think it was a smallpox outbreak and it killed a
Yes.
large amount of the population, and people
Hmm.
are now just trying to survive this harsh environment. And there will be savage players, both artificially controlled and natural, actual real characters who will do anything to survive. But it just like it felt like it was like a real life situation I was in. But I've never been a big on Tom Clancy's games, but I've always admired what they can do. I mean, Division's
Right.
probably not my cup of tea, but I admire it for what it's trying to do. That's what I try to do with some of these games. But
I,
it. Oh, go ahead.
Based off of what I've seen with Division One, I would say that it didn't very do a whole lot of political. It didn't involve a lot of political views, but it did involve some apocalyptic scenarios and some of its repercussions caused by those scenarios. I personally think that even though I've not played it, but based off of what I've read and what I've seen, I think the Division One had a perfect balance between story, politics, and morality. Um, now I don't know how Polygon can say, even with the interviews that have been done, that Division Two will have no politics. I'm not exactly sure how they can say that, seeing as how we've still got almost a whole year before the Division Two comes out. I mean, it's March 2019. Think about it. They can still go back on their word and do a lot of things. Not to mention, we don't know much about the story yet.
Well, other than it's set in Washington D.C., I mean that's all we know as of right now. I mean it could be.
Precisely.
I mean, like what type of factions are you going to go against?
Hmm.
What type of behaviors they are? I mean, we did see a lot of new enemy type. I mean, like, some new enemies because instead of the harsh New York winter, you get the you get a DC um, spring or summer. I don't know. I don't know what type of season that is, but it looks like it like late spring, early summer to me. I mean, like I think we're going to get a totally complete different game.
Well, in one of the trailers that they gave, which was the cinematic trailer, I believe, they showed uh, they basically showed through action and premise and environment, not through actual dialogue. And what they showed was that the kind of the set scenario for Division Two is in Washington D.C., like you said, but is
Uh,
in a post-apocalyptic setting where it's more of a lawless scenario where moral laws and governmental um, uh, restrictions no longer apply, and now groups of gangs and or uh, you know um,
Militias.
militias, or should I say factions, as you said, now rule everything. Um, and whether or not they're going to involve politics in terms of rebuilding the government and a whole bunch of other stuff, it has potential to do that. It would make sense for them to do so, and I can't see them passing on such a grand opportunity. Now, does this mean that they're going to go totally political? I don't think so. No, since the vast majority of it is basically just a clean house after the chaos that was caused by the smallpox vaccine, the smallpox outbreak.
Uh huh.
But I do believe that there is an opportunity for them to be a little bit political here, but I don't think that Polygon is really taking it for what it's worth. I think that they're basically just taking a small premise that could be what's going on, it, blowing it up out of proportion and then making an article about it.
Yeah. I mean, see, this is why I don't like reading articles or listen to diehard fans of a certain game or genre that much.
Hmm.
Things can change in the next 4 to 6 months or the next
Right.
year because these games are announced so far ahead of time or announced within months. It pretends how hush hush some of these companies want to be. It can go either way. But the problem that I have with something that's been that's only out in the next 6 months or 6 to 9 months is, are they how much of a change are they going to make? I mean,
Right.
games can change over the course of a year. I mean, I saw how much a game franchise I'm big into is Bioshock Infinite changed a lot over its development time, and yet it was still a great game. But can it really happen to Division Two? I don't know because I'm not that, it's not really on my radar right now. but maybe if I can, get a copy of, the Division One and see what I think of it. I mean, other than that, I can't really say much about the game, other than it looks like a decent shooter that I may want to try to get my hands on one day.
Now, as for what you said just a minute ago, as for the development of the game changing within its development time, there is a lot of things that can happen. Many examples being, but not limited to, um uh, decisions of being retconned for uh, getting a better idea on the identity of the game,
True.
uh, staff or even design teams being fired or relocated to other resources and having to rehire people to finish the game. That's happened. Yes, I'm looking at you, Duke Nukem Forever.
Oh,
Um,
don't get me started on that game, man. What we can do, is have a
a
entire
separate, yeah, a
a
separate,
separate time for that. But I mean, if we
yeah.
want to talk about worst games, we'll definitely mention that game. But
Yeah, but my point was is that many things can happen in the 9 months that it's going to take for us to get to the release day of Division Two. Many things can happen. It's not like it's just a couple of months around the corner. We're talking almost a full year here.
yeah, I mean, I like I say, I don't like to hear too many fans complain about a certain franchise because I mean, like when I see a game that looks interesting, I may follow it on on social media, whether it be Facebook or Twitter,
Hmm.
and see what the development team is or the developer is saying. Saying, hey, we have a new uh, trailer, or here's some concept art here's some of the original designs that we had
Right?
about the hero, the characters, the villain, the environment that you're in. I mean,
Not
yeah, things will change from the concept stages.
not to mention that there have been times in the past where I'm not sure about Ubisoft, but many game devs would actually release a public beta or an early alpha to players to try out almost half a year before the release date just to get an idea or some kind of view from the community as to, is this a good decision? Is this a good direction for the game? Do we need to make any changes? We want this to be a good game.
Yeah,
So,
well, Ubisoft is not bad of releasing a a beta or something out,
mhm,
but I have been a part of some betas where the changes are not that noticeable or somewhat noticeable, but at times I don't mind the changes as long as it doesn't, ruin my experience, once the full-fledged game comes out. I'm more than willing to give a beta a test or a
right.
try. I mean that's what I'm doing when I'm playing the beta. I'm testing the silly thing.
Now, there's also the chance that all this backlash of people talking in the community, and it's not unlikely for this to happen, is that Ubisoft will see this huge uprising of people over the net. They'll notice that there being a problem or concern, and they may either address it or maybe even fix it in the game before release. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Division 2. There is so many uncertainties that it's almost impossible to discuss it based off of any fact.
Well, true, but see, I just don't like people when they're jumping the gun, saying, "Oh, this game
Mm-hmm.
is too political," or this game is too has poor dialogue," or "This game doesn't that character doesn't look right." Um,
Especially whenever it's almost 9 months before the release date.
yeah, I mean, if it's like within a month and people
Mm-hmm.
demand changes like on the fly,
Right.
it's pretty much impossible at times. But I don't know how long it takes, to fix some issues, especially with this generation.
Mm-hmm.
What if it takes, almost a month and the game's coming out in 2 weeks? I mean,
Right.
I mean, it pretends like how well advanced they know of a problem and if they're actually fixing it or not. So
Yeah.
that's the question.
Now, I have noticed that a lot of the stuff that they mentioned in this so-called article of theirs, them being Polygon, has a lot of speculation in it, and they use a lot of interviews taken out of context. And personally, I think that what they're trying to do is they're trying to get people all geared up over one tiny aspect that may or may not even be a factor of the game. Now, I will say this much. Should a game need to be political based off of a previous title? You know, if they have to, then I guess that's okay, but don't force it. If you're just going to say, oh, well, it has to be political, it has to be one way or another, keep in mind, you're not the only person they have to listen to. There's going to be plenty of other people that are going to think the opposite. And I think that I'm going to say this, and am I going to be daring and probably get a lot of hate for this? Sure, but I'm going to say it. I think Polygon was inappropriate to take this stance at this very time because they have little to no info to back up their claim.
Well, Polygon will always be Polygon. I mean, they'll make, any statement they can just to upset gamers. I mean, they'll say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, if you play these type of games, you're this or that or whatever.
Right.
I mean, okay, are you basing this out of, personal experience or are you basing it on, scientific facts? That would be nice to know. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes even that they won't even say where they got their information.
Right.
I mean, like, I try to be fair to all websites, even the ones I don't visit as much. But
Mm-hmm.
if a site has been always trying to remain neutral without, I mean, and showing a little favoritism one way or the other, then I don't mind. But if you're showing favoritism like when you're deliberately showing favoritism one way or the other, then I question, your position on things. I mean, I may disagree on a review. I may disagree on you know, you know, on what a preview or open opinions, wherever you want to call them nowadays. Because I mean, it seems like every 5 seconds that they come up with a new something, and you gotta keep track of what they're calling them nowadays. But I don't really think. I just want to keep if they can keep their opinions, neutral, like I've been trying to do. I think they can be a bit more fair. But knowing Polygon's past, they're not going to be neutral. They're always going to have their own personal agenda against games.
Mm-hmm. Now, reading more into their article, they are blowing a lot of things out of proportion, and in many ways, in this so-called interview that they had with Terry Spire, um, it almost seems like they forcibly led him into this "is it political or not political" statement in the interview without justification. It looks like that they actually led him into answering yes or no about it only so they could have a whole blown up statement about it. Um, to take some of their stuff into context, they said your central character here on the key art has an American flag bandana tied to their backpack, and then um, uh, Terry says, yes, that's correct. And then they say, that is not a political statement, question mark, and they say, absolutely not. And then they lead it up with, taking up arms against a corrupt government is not a political statement. And then probably because they didn't know how properly to answer that, Terry says, no, it's not a political statement. No, we are absolutely here to explore a new city. I think they're taking this out of proportion in a sense that they're not giving him a chance to give a really detailed respectable answer. They're just wanting him to say something that they can scoop up, make a big stink about, and have an article based off of that stink.
I kind of agree because I kind of skimmed through the interview. It feels like they were trying to push him the way they want to lead this
Mm-hmm.
article, and I've never been a big fan of their tactics from time to time because I've heard mixed things about what Polygon has been known to do. So
Yeah. Not to mention that the whole idea of taking back government with a post-apocalyptic scenario. You know what? In my opinion, whether they say it is political or not, that is political. Whether it's passive political, uh, subtlety political, or not intentional political, doesn't matter. It is sort of political, and then Polygon just jumping in there saying, "Oh, so it's not political." I think that's a very wrong thing for them to do. It's almost like they instigated the issue for the sole purpose of, well, and I've said this before, for the sole purpose of blowing up the article to have something to have a stink about. And I think everyone should take this article with a grain of salt and a pile of crap, because this is, I don't see any good journalism here.
yeah, I've heard Polygon's always that one. I'm not sure what side of the political spectrum they lean on, but it's not my side. I can tell you that.
Mhm. Right.
And
And even if it doesn't have any politics in it, who cares? As long as the story is good, it doesn't matter.
yeah, we can talk about the same thing with comics, but we're talking about games and politics.
Hmm.
But yeah, as long I can literally play a game for 15 hours straight if I wanted to, and
Hmm.
enjoy the game.
Right.
But it's hard. It's hard for me to enjoy a good game if it's such a heavy theme political wise. I mean, it's okay to mention, hey, I don't support this politician because A and B and C. As
Hmm.
long as I know they're a fictional character, who cares? I don't care if they're based off a real person or not.
Well, the thing is, I think that if the politics is well mixed with the story, and the story itself is really good, then you're gonna skim over it like, oh well, that was a little bit of politics, but it didn't take away from the story, so there's that plus. But I think personally, whether a game has heavy politics or not doesn't matter, as long as the politics is well explained and justified in telling the story.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but it seems like Polygon is always looking for something to attack in
Hmm.
games. It's like
Yes.
it seems like they became I think they're trying to paint themselves as the white knights of pulp culture or something
Ah!
because they've been able to attack anything that they don't agree with. They've been
Hmm.
able to attack a couple of movies, you name it, they probably attacked it.
Right. Yeah, yeah, I see where you're coming from, and there have been a few groups like that who start their own fires just so that way they can look like the hero.
Yeah,
So,
and I'm just, I mean, like, and plus, I think I'm not for sure. I just think this is pure speculation, but I've heard they're like, they don't support some forms of gaming, some not some forms of journalistic ethics.
mhm.
I'm like, a journalist should always have some ethics. You want to have boundaries. You want to have what you can and cannot do. But yet they seem to ignore them at times. At least what I've heard, I'm not 100% sure, but I've heard that they had not been, the most purest journalist site of all.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a little page from an anime I once watched called Gundam 00. There was a
Oh,
statement that one of the characters in that show said that I think very much applies here, as terms of what kind of ethic should be ideal for a journalist.
Uh-huh.
and that is that one of the characters said, um, uh, you know, ask questions, gather all the facts when you have, and then string them all together, and and get to the truth.
Yeah.
And
I think I've seen that anime, but I'm not for sure. But I'm a
yeah,
big
but
Gundam fan, but I'm not for sure I've seen
right,
that one. But I definitely, if I do, I'll make sure I watch that
yeah.
anime again.
Ask questions, get the facts, string them all together, and then get to the truth. I believe that that is a very, very clean and well spoken ethic that almost all journalists should have. So, and
Yeah.
I think as long as the facts they're going off of are, truthful and not warranted with speculation, then I think that there that would be good for a journalist. It's just it's gotten to the point where I think a lot of journalism has gotten to be guesswork, where many people will take speculation more valuable instead of trying to find tidbits of truth and stringing them together.
Oh yeah. I mean, how do you think I feel about some of these movements that are going on, like Me Too? Because I mean, like,
Hmm.
I don't question every single one of these, uh, allegations, but if somebody, makes accusations against a person and the guy, hold on, what? Okay, sorry. Let's see. Okay, let me get back where I was going. I,
Yeah. So yeah.
so I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I want to. I mean, at first, when you hear these accusations, you want to know they're true. And when the
Hmm.
person being accused is, saying, "Hey, here's my side of the story," I,
Hmm.
I mean, then I then at the time I can't really figure out which side to go to. I
Right.
think if you can gather the facts, evaluate them, then decide, then you consider that what is or isn't the truth. I mean, I don't. I mean, I try, you
Hmm.
know, keep a neutral mind or a state of mind about these, articles, but at times I really can't remain neutral. I really had to, say something or lash out at the writer wrote it.
Right. Yeah. You. When it comes to this stuff, you really can't just take a side and be prejudiced, or to a certain degree. You have to be very open minded in a sense that it may not always be the way you think it is.
Yeah. I mean, I try to be open-minded, but when you got these, closed-minded individuals who say, "Oh, that's not true. You're just a racist, sexist bigot." I mean, like,
Mm.
I'm just saying what I think is true. If you don't like it, just say I disagree. I mean, I probably disagree with most of the people I watch on YouTube, and I don't call them names.
Right.
I just say, don't agree with him. I'm just gonna, move along.
Right. I mean, if you don't agree with it, you just click out of the video and say, "I'm just going to ignore it." But
Yeah,
yeah. Um. Yeah, I think that we pretty much got it down. It's just one of those things that we're just going to have to consider Polygon one of those not so cut and dry um, n- you know, news producers, where it's you take it with a grain of salt. As
yeah,
much as you may think that they're truthful, it's probably the other way around.
yeah.
So,
From time to time, I consider them like the Gawker of video game news. Okay,
mm, well,
so I mean, I
things can
would,
change.
yeah, things can change, but I mean, I mean, I bet like the most of the dialogue has not been haven't been recorded now. So
Hmm.
I mean, things can change. I mean, they're probably working on a script, but I mean, they're probably trying to, tune it here and there, and hopefully they can give out a good game.
Hmm.
I
Yep.
mean, do you want to have any closing statements? Because that's what I'm going to give you the floor first.
No, I think we pretty much touched on everything.
Yeah, I mean, I say everything I want to say is just that I think I think the article. I mean, I'll put it in the description so people can read it if they want, so they know what we're talking about. But
Hmm.
I'm just gonna say this: if if you want to attack a game for not being political, don't cover it. That's all I have to say.
Well, I mean, only if the game, only if it's near release date or after release date can you really justify that argument, and only if it's absolutely necessary that the game include politics.
Yeah,
Um, Making such an assumption so soon, with plenty of months being still left to develop, I think that it was very mistimed. So.
yeah. I mean, it came like a couple days after Ubisoft's press conference, but
Mhm.
I I mean, I've been like I said, I've been skimming at it, here and there, especially today. And I'm just saying, it's just to me that it's just another political hit piece or something. I'm
Mhm.
not for sure what. I mean, I'm usually am wrong at times, but hey, at least I admit it. So, see you around, StealthBat.
Sounds good.
See you later, man.
All right. So this is StealthBat.
And this is Destin Germany signing out.
All right. Later.